For this assignment, you're going to be creating a letterhead and envelope based on the design of your business card that you created last week. So your very first assignment this week, I had you create a style sheet of your business card. This is easier to have right next to you. You can either have it on a split screen, or you can, if you have a printer available, you can print it and have it right next to you. But we want to be able to refer to this to see what type we use, the font, the size, whether it was centered, and the different colors. You can also have your business card available, because we're going to make it simple and cut and paste from this. And then you need a new Google slide, right? And this is going to be very similar to creating your business card. So we pulled up a Google slide. First thing we want to do for a letterhead is we're going to change the page setup. We want it to be just like a regular piece of paper. So it's going to be 8.5 by 11. You're going to apply this. And then we can get rid of this stuff here. I'm just highlighting it and deleting it. And we're going to work from a master. Whenever you're creating your letterhead, if you put it on a master, then nothing will move on you when you go to type into it. It'll be permanently fixed there. We only need one of these. So we're going to get rid of all of this stuff here, because we want a blank slate, and do that even on the master. And then we don't need any of these. So I'm going to hold the Shift key. I'm going to highlight all of these just to get rid of them, because we're only making one letterhead. We only need one example there. And then just hit delete. All right, and we're going to work on this layout. So if we look back to my original design, I want to keep it very similar. So I want some of the textures to be the same, the fonts to be the same, and the colors to be the same. So I'm going to start with a texture. Whenever you're doing a texture, you want to remember that you have to be able to type over this, because this is letterhead. You're going to be using this to send out information to people. So we're going to start first by inserting an image, and we're going to search the web. And I want my canvas texture. And I want something that's going to look interesting. So I'm going to pick this one. Right, and I want it to be able to fit the whole area, and it's more of a landscape rather than a portrait. So I'm simply going to arrange it and rotate it. So it's up this way, and I'm going to line it up. And I don't want it to blur or anything. I want to size it so that I keep a lot of this texture. So I'm going to hold down my Shift key and size it out beyond. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to crop it. So I clicked on the crop bar, and I want to line it up first with the edge here. And then slide down to the bottom, and I want to line it up with my rulers over to the left. I can see right where my line hits, and I'm going to click off of it. So there it should fit my whole background. Then I want to highlight that, go to my format options, and I'm going to recolor it. And I want the recolor to be a grayscale. And then I want to adjust, and I want it to be really light, so I can still see some of the texture, but I'm going to be able to type over it. So right there is my background. Right. I also want to add the other texture that I had. And if you look at my example, okay, I have this painting texture. So now I'm going to insert again an image, search the web. This time I want paint texture. Right. And I used this texture here. Okay. And I want to use just a thin rectangle of that, so I'm going to crop it, and I want to crop it so that it has some interesting textures within it. This is going to be, actually, I need that to go up. All right, this is just going to be a thin texture that's going to be at the bottom. I'm going to unclick that. Go back to Format Options. I want to have a grayscale. Actually, I'm going to make it a color. And I'm going to bring that right down to the bottom. That's going to give me a contrast. All right, so this is where I'm going to go back to my business card. And rather than redoing your whole logo all over again, you can simply copy and paste. So I'm going to click on my logo here, and I'm going to see if this will work, but I want both the outside circle and I want the inside. So if I hold the Shift key down, see if that will highlight that. It highlighted both of them. I can hit Control C, go back to my letterhead and Control V, and there I have both of them. And I'm going to actually move that to the middle. And I don't want to go right up along the edge because I don't want anything to run off. So I want to keep it a little bit of ways. I want that centered. And then I also want to add some information up there. So if we go back to my business card, my very first one said Bertrand Art, Imagine, Create, Inspire. And I'm going to include that right underneath my logo. So I'm going to insert a text box. And I'm going to start with Bertrand Art. Imagine, Create, Inspire. But this is where you want your fonts to match, and this is where your style sheet comes in. So I can see right here that my business name, I used Oswald Bold. Now for your letterhead, it doesn't have to match the size, but you definitely want to have the font. So I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to highlight, and I want Oswald Bold. Okay. Now I can change the size a little bit later. Right. And if we look back now at my style sheet, the color of that, okay, the birch run was this color here, which was more of a turquoise color. And then the art part was white. If we look at my letterhead, to put white in there, that's not going to work. So I can keep it consistent by making it this turquoise color. And I'm going to play around with that in a few minutes and see if it looks good. But I'm going to choose black instead of white just so it pops out. And then if we go to Imagine, Create, Inspire, go back to the style sheet, that's called my tagline. And in that one, I used E.B. Garamond. So I'm going to go back to this, switch my font to E.B. Garamond. All right. And then I want both of them to be centered. From there, I can line it right up underneath. Then I can look at it and decide if I like that font color. I can go a little bit darker if I wanted, or I can do it all black, just so it stands out. I can play around with that a little bit later. Okay, also on your letterhead, you want to include your name, address, city, zip code, and then possibly your phone number. And I'm going to put that down at the bottom so it stands out. So I'm going to insert another text box. And I want it to go from one side to the other. And it's going to be centered, so I can get all of this set up right now. And I want this to pop out, so I'm going to make it the color white. From here, I can just type in my name, a couple spaces, city and state, zip code, and then I can even put a phone number. Now this is where I also want to keep it consistent, and I can choose, I can have certain things stand out. I can choose to either go with the E.B. Garamond for all of it, or I can go with the Oswald. So I'm going to play around and see what I like and what stands out better. And I can also change my size. can move it around. I just don't want it at the very bottom because I want it to be able to not get cut off at all. All right, so this seems really bold compared to this part up here. So I'm just going to play around. I may end up making this the light. Okay. So my choices are going to be either the extra light or the bold, simply because I put that in my business card and I want it to be consistent. All right, what I can change, okay, just to add a little bit to it, that white seems to pop out a lot next to this background. I want it to be consistent with that background, and I made that background a grayscale, and I made it semi-transparent. So to make it so it blends in better, I'm actually going to change my font color to a very light gray. And then it's not so much of a contrast from the background. And then I want this stuff up here, I want this to stand out a little bit more. So I'll make sure that was the bold. I'm actually going to go a little bit larger. And then I can also look at my font color and see if there isn't something that might be a little bit darker. So I can get within the same family. I can go a little bit darker. See how that stands out. All right. And then again, with the create, inspire, that one we're just going to go with a medium bold so it stands out a little bit darker. All right, so there I have my letterhead. Now if I wanted to type in it, I can go back to my original. Okay, there it is set up. None of this stuff will move. All right, but then I can go ahead and insert a text box, and I can start typing. All right, and continue with my letter.